Welcome back, everybody, to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin, and today's act is Act 67, Birth of a Champion. I've always liked the little jokes that somehow started in the series where the women in Kenshin's life somehow resemble little small creatures, like Megumi being a fox, Kaoru being a tanuki, and now Misao being a weasel. I always kind of found it a little bit just lighthearted, fun, kind of having fun with the characters, because you can see how Megumi would be a fox. She's cunning, she's manipulative. Misao is brash and a nuisance, like a weasel, and Kaoru being a tanuki is the one that I don't quite understand, but I think it's because I just don't know enough about tanukis and the whole mythos around them, because I think the tanuki is a little bit more of the mythical or folklore character, where a weasel and fox are very tangible, real characters. Foxes being very prominent in American culture just as much as Japanese culture. So you can see the whole cunning and manipulation aspect of it. But I don't know. I don't know. If somebody can explain it to me, I'd love nothing more to, get in on the joke and be like, aha, I get that. That is something I now understood thanks to so-and-so who told me in the comment section. But anyways, let's get into the chapter summary review and we'll get into the actual chapter here. Saito and Kenshin meet up and discuss both of their reasons for finding themselves at Shingetsu Village. When Kenshin decides that he's going to bring down the bodies of the boys' parents and give them a proper burial, he is met with resistance from the residents of Shingetsu Village. Saito shames them for their lack of pride, and Kenshin brings the bodies down anyways. Understanding that Shingetsu Village is the example of what Japan could look like if Shishio gets his way, the two make their way to face him. Shishio and Sojiro are alerted of Kenshin and Saito's visit and prepare Senkaku to meet him. Alright, so let's start off with Saito. Saito actually has a reason to be here. I think it was in the last video that I said, I was like, well, why hasn't Saito come? Or why would they send somebody else, another police officer, when they could just send Saito and Saito would take care of it? And the whole reason that Saito is here is because Senkaku is a bit of a small fry. But Shishio, and the reports that Shishio is here, is a good enough reason for Saito to make a detour stop and check out Shingetsu Village. Because as we find out that this is not just the only village in Japan that has been taken over by Shishio. It is, I think, one of maybe 10 or 11, but we'll get into that in just a bit. I don't think that this is a good enough reason for Saito to make his way here. I think that if Saito is capable enough to take care of somebody like Senkaku, Shishio being in the village, or Shishio's men, like the main faction of the Shishio clan, being in this village in that moment, is not a good enough reason to send one of your top elite policemen into the village to finally take care of the problem. Like, little by little, they should have already been going and getting the village sorted out. Contain the problem. Don't let it spread out. But I think that this kind of just goes to show that the Meiji is so incompetently ran that they would allow for 11 or so villages to be taken away from them and fall into the hands of a shadow warlord like Shishio. It just shows that they are not good at what they do. But anyways, I don't like it. I don't like that that's the reason Saito is here. It's a detour. They still have time before everybody gets into Kyoto. So, I don't know. Let's go ahead and check out Shingetsu Village. In universe, it's not a good enough reason. I think that Shingetsu Village should be, have a little bit more going on, but I get it. It's not like they can exactly do something right away. What they're trying to do is actually cut the head off of the dragon or the octopus, or whatever metaphorical animal that you want to think of that, spreads like, spreads its influences. you cut the head off, then, they're able to go back and get those villages that they lost, and that's what they're trying to do in Kyoto. I just don't really get the whole Shishio being in the village, and that's the reason that Saito is here. But what it is that we get to see our main character Kenshin and his rival Saito come together, two people that we just seen them fight against each other a few chapters ago, join forces. Like, there's this whole theme going around this chapter, or this chapter, that where they're talking about how this is the reason people like Shishio and the stuff that's going on, and the way that this village has kind of cowered out, and they've lost their pride, and they've been kind of reduced to, like, essentially livestock being held there to be used by, Shishio. The whole point of it is there's this, focus that people like this and the situation that they're in, it allows for the Hitokiri and the Shinsengumi to be used again. That these were people that were utilized in the old world, and now it is time for them to dust their shoes off and, get back out there. And instead of fighting against each other and fighting against their ideals, they're combining their ideals to fight this person, because at the end of the day, Shinsengumi and Hitokiri both believed in a Japan, and that Japan may be lost if Shishio gets his way. So as I mentioned, 10 villages or 11 villages have already been taken over by Shishio. Here we actually get to see some of the villagers, where in the last chapter we saw Shishio's men, but we actually get to see, the people here, and we see how broken they are, how cowardly they've become. And it angers Kenshin, but we'll get into Kenshin's anger in just a moment. It is fascinating to think that Shishio and the Wei Senkaku are running this village, and, presumably 10 other villages looking very similar to this, that these people are absolutely terrified, that they only have the instinct to survive because they're afraid of death itself. That the warrior spirit has been completely and absolutely crushed. It makes me think of, historical, figures. I believe it was Emiliano Zapata from Mexico that said, "I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees." And that is the warrior spirit. That is exactly what Saito and essentially Kenshin do, without really voicing it, is kind of shaming these people for, because they're essentially living on their knees. They're so afraid of dying, but so impish or so cowardly to actually do anything about it. And in the age of samurai, this was extremely unacceptable. This goes against everything that Kenshin and Saito kind of believe in. And it's kind of interesting because, the right thing to do is to still save this village, but you can tell that Saito, at the very least, doesn't really want to, because there's nobody in this village that is brave enough to do it. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Kenshin's anger. Kenshin is extremely, extremely mad in this chapter, and the only thing that I really have to say about it is that this feels like a different type of anger. But I think what it is, it's alluding to Kenshin's past that we will find out in future chapters. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that there because I don't have that yet. And it's coming up soon, so we'll get into that. But anyways, I think that's what Kenshin's anger is about. I think it's just setting it up for when we find out about Kenshin's past and why he's so deeply bothered by the people hanging, and then the way nobody wanted to do anything about it. Oh, and the final thing is that Shishio has apparently been keeping tabs on Kenshin. The entire time Kenshin was traveling alone, keeping people at a distance because he was worried about Shishio potentially surprisingly attacking them, and Shishio has been keeping tabs on him the entire time. The only way that Kenshin actually got away from Shishio was when he was trying to get away from Misao, when he just jumped into the forest. It's actually pretty funny. I thought it was funny. I laughed when I read it, just kind of the thought of a Shishio grunt you know, like keeping tabs on Kenshin, and then just boom, this little picture of Kenshin just jumping immediately into the forest and disappearing. Oh man, good stuff. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is Act 67 of Rurouni Kenshin. If you like this video and you want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel, leave a thumbs up, and comment down something below about this chapter that you enjoyed. I actually kind of like Saito and the way that he got on the villagers about losing that warrior spirit and none of them wanting to, you know, stand up to Kenshin, that when or to stand up to Shishio, and Kenshin doing it anyways because it's the right thing to do, and Saito pitying them and shaming them for being the way that they are. I get it. I understand that living in that village is probably hell, the way that Shishio runs things, and it's all important. But I just like the way that Saito shamed them. It's one of those Saito things that I love about Saito. Anyways, let me know what you guys like down below, and we'll talk in the comments. Bye, ciao.